So the window, maybe just a refresh on this project, we've brought our windows out to be past our insulation layer and into our girt layer, just like you're seeing here. And we've done that by way of a wood buck. So we've gone from our framing, sheathing, WRB, framed out a window buck to bring out our flange flush with our girt surface. So now, maybe looking further back on this wall, we've got our standard girts laid out, and then wherever we've got our penetrations, window in this case, that's interrupting our standard girts. Now on this project, once we get to our cladding stage, I'm satisfied with our last anchor point on a girt is further away than the window than say right beside. We've got different scenarios on different parts of the wall here, but all cantilever, not really cantilever is not really the correct term here, but in a loose form, cantilever my cladding from that last girt onto that window buck. It's not a cantilever because I will be able to anchor my cladding onto this window buck, and I'll have my J of my window here solid anchored into that window buck as well. So I'll get all that stuff buttoned up on a future video and show you that. Underside of the window, I've just maintained the layout of our standard girts, and that's where you see this girt just terminate up underside of that window. And then same thing at the head of the window, where we've got our head flashing, end dams in place, and then I've just picked up that girt there. So that's sort of the run of the game here on your standard girts. Now, in conditions like this where I've got a door, and maybe windows on your project might be more like this, where the door is kept back at the sheathing layer. So then our cladding and our clip insulation girts and cladding are bumping out from that. That's where with our hitch system, we offer the edge girts. So we've got an edge girt here applied to the perimeter edge of our door. Maybe I'll just describe the anatomy of an edge girt, that we've got our flange similar to the standard girt where it's got a flange on both sides. Edge girt has a flange only on one side. This side here is just a square edge, so I can bring it right tight to wherever my layout needs to be. Now on this particular door, I've laid it out. Our return, we're gonna end up using one of our 2-inch corner sets on our cladding. So that, as the name entails, it's 2 inches in depth. Our return here, by the time we add cladding on here, will end up being about 3 inches, 2 7/8, something like that. So I'll end up getting a little bit tricky, a little bit fancy on this one, that I'm gonna end up taking a J-track from our siding and screwing that onto the door jamb. And that'll be a 7/8 J-track. That'll give me 7/8 standoff, let's call it. And then I can put on my 2-inch corner set to return back to that 7/8 J. Those two are just gonna meet nicely if everything goes well. That's the plan with that. So we'll end up having that just be a trim component return, if that makes sense, and then onto our cladding from there. So that's kind of the purpose of an edge girt, get you close to that. If our windows were back at the sheathing layer, then we'd look at the same similar detailing where we'd bring an edge girt in. But again, with us doing the buck out, that gave me opportunity then to be able to mechanically fasten the cladding and the trim components to that buck, and that reduced the amount of hitch clips and girts that we needed around those windows. And that's why you see some of my girts are typically not more than 15, 16 inches away. But in this case, we bring in an edge girt to get us closer. Hey everyone, we're back here at the Laneway house. As you can see, it's a completed project at this stage. I want to walk you through today our windows and doors and just sort of show you how we've landed at the finished state here, how we treated the windows and doors. Previous video, we would have shown our hitch cladding attachment system and the girt layout from there. So let's check it out here at the window. With our window, I would say this is pretty standard treatment of, we've got a J-track, single J-track, 7/8 in this case, up the two sides, and along the top, the header J, single J. Underside of window, in our building code here locally in British Columbia, we require a drip flashing on the sill. So we've got that drip flashing. We've also got a 2-piece J underneath here. So typically, I would say common practice is anywhere that we're parallel to a cladding plank, horizontal in this case, we want to go 2-piece J when we're parallel underside, because we're terminating that plank that's notched around the window. So that's what we've done here. Above on the header, even though we're parallel, we're actually able to stick with a single piece J. It's a little bit more simplified for our detailing at the joints between the J's. So we've got those J's. On this window in a previous video, I mentioned about we've brought this window out with a buck to bring the window out essentially flush with the cladding. In fact, just a hair proud of it. I think it's a nice clean look. So that's what we've done here. That video, I would have shown the anatomy of the hitch system with our standard common layout of our standard girts at 32 inches on center in this case. And that would have landed, I believe it's somewhere around this area here. And then I loosely used the term of we've cantilevered our planks. It's not really a true cantilever because we ended up landing those planks and attached them to that wood buck that brought that window out. So that's what we've done here. J's are also attached to that buck. And then after that, we hit that girt and carry on. So that's kind of how we've gotten to this stage. And we've got this nice clean look with those J's almost out flush to that window. I'll walk you around to a door where we've kept the door back at the framed wall, and then we've had a return to be able to encompass. So let's go check that out. On our doors, this door here is a wood jamb door where the jamb itself is actually back at the framed wall assembly. In fact, it's aligned with the sheathing in the WRB. So we've got a return scenario, having our hitch cladding attachment system. Now, the dimensioning on this one, I'll be clear, and I've spoken to this point on a previous video, a little bit by design, but I also got a bit lucky with the dimensioning here, that we've got a 2 7/8 or a better part of 2 7/8 return back to that jamb or back to sheathing. That math works out perfectly with what we at Longboard offer for some of our trims. We have a 2-inch corner here, so that gave me my 2-inch return of that 2 7/8, and then we've got a 7/8 J. So that 7/8 J, again, just a bit by chance and a bit by design, worked out perfect. That I was able to screw that J track onto the jamb, and that jamb, of course, is tied in with our WRB. There's some blue skin and Tyvek in there. You'll see that in the previous video. And then that 7/8 J protrudes out 7/8, and I've got my 2-inch corner set on here. Now, looking at the hitch part, this is where we'd see the standard layout of our hitch girts, 32 inch on center. And then I've strategically used our edge girt from our hitch system, which brings my girt, or the surface I can attach to, right to that leading edge of this return. So that gives me full support to be able to anchor my 2-inch corner set onto that and create my return from there. So it's just a nice clean detail in this case. And I've done that treatment both up the 2 side jambs and across the header. And then here, again, every door is gonna be slightly different, or building code slightly different. I've still got my drip flashing here at the header. Again, that's aligned with the WRB and the sheathing. So we've tied that in nicely, and then out from there is the installation hitch system and a nice return. I'll show you one other door unique to this project where we've got a vinyl door different than this wood frame. So let's go check that one out. The last one I'm going to show you here, last penetration, we've got a vinyl door. So we've already covered vinyl window on the window buck that brought it out. We've got a wood jamb door that was left back at framing. And here we have a combination of both. So we've got the vinyl flanged door slider in this case. I would say both the doors, the reasoning for these doors being left back and not being put on a buck is simply because of the sill. In this case, we've got concrete, our slab on grade, let's say. We're not able to bump this door out and support it, at a 2 or 3 inch return scenario. So we've left it back, and we've treated it different than those other 2 penetrations, and I'll just walk you through that. So we've got a J-track in our case here, and our return, because it's a vinyl flange and that's got different profile to it, that's why it's a slightly different return depth. So it's not that 2 7/8 that wood jamb door is. We've only got about, I'd call it maybe 7/8 to an inch, right? So we've opted to just keep it simple and used our 7/8 J, which the thickness is about 5/8 of an inch from back to front. And then I still had, mathematically, let's say I had a slight opening there, a gap, let's say. So I opted to just go flashing by others. In our case, with our trim set, we've gone with our onyx black finish. So that's kind of simplified things, made it really, really easy with the flashing. We just went with an off-the-shelf black flashing, custom shape like you would anything else, and bent that. So that on top of our hitch system, same as the other windows and doors, we've strategically placed our girts. In this case, we've gone with our edge girt, pushing that right to the edge of that opening. And then that supports our J-track well, and even I landed my flashing on top of that girt as well. So that's how we've detailed that. And just like that other door, same treatment for the 2 side jambs and across the header with our drip flashing to meet our build. there you go. So those are the ways that we've treated our vinyl flanged window on a window buck, our wood jamb door back at framing, and a vinyl slider door back at framing as well. So that's how we've treated our openings here.